In consulting case interviews, market sizing can be one of the trickiest questions you could be asked, but it can become easy with enough practice. Therefore, today we're going to be going through 3 practice market sizing cases with my work solutions. Hi, I'm Henry, an ex-BCG consultant and founder of the Consulting Axis, where our mission is to help you align your future in consulting. So let's get right into the first case. So the first case is all about the US contact lens market, and in particular, how big is the US contact lens market? Now, in market sizing cases, the first thing you need to do is to clarify the question. You need to make sure that you are really clear what your interviewer has asked you and what you need to do. So take a minute. What clarifying questions would you want to ask here? So personally, I'd want to clarify 2 things here. So firstly, the unit of measurement, so how we are measuring market size. Are we doing this by revenue or by volume of sales? And secondly, I would want to clarify the time period that we are looking at. Are we looking at market size in a year or a month or a given day even? So let's say for this question, our interviewer says that we are looking at market size by volume of sales, so how many contact lenses are sold in the US, but also we're looking at this on a given month, so how many are sold in the US in a single month. So now that we have those things clarified, pause the video, take 5 minutes, give the question a go before playing to see how I solve this question.
So I started answering this question like you do with most market sizing questions, with the calculation tree, putting volume at the top, because that is what we are trying to find out, the volume of contact lenses sold in the US every month. We can start by breaking this down by saying this is equal to the number of customers, so the number of people in the US that wear contact lenses, multiplied by the quantity that each customer buys per month. And I'm going to estimate the average number of contact lenses that people buy per month to be around 10 pairs, so 20, as you obviously need 2 for both eyes. Now, I know that there are different types of contact lenses, ones that you wear for a day, ones that you wear for a whole month, but I'm assuming that everyone wears the daily ones and not the monthlies. Now, I know this is a big assumption, but as long as you state your assumptions, you are fine to make them. Now, looking at the number of customers side, we can break this down further into the number of people with poor vision, so the number of people that wear glasses, multiplied by the percentage of those people that additionally use contact lenses, which I'm going to estimate to be around 20%. And finally, to estimate the number of people with poor vision in the US, I'm going to multiply the US population by the percentage of the population that have poor vision. Now, I know the population of the US to be around 300 million people, and I'm going to estimate the percentage of that population that have poor vision to be around 50%. Now, this 50% will vary a lot depending on things like age, but I'm going to give this a blanket average of 50%. So now that we have estimates for all the bottom boxes, we can now work our way back up to work out the volume and our answer. So the number of people with poor vision will be equal to 300 million times by 50%, which gets you to 150 million. Then we can use this to work out the number of customers by multiplying the 150 million by the 20%, the proportion of people that need glasses that also wear contact lenses, to get 30 million. And finally, this gives us a volume per month of 30 million times by 20 to give us 60 million. So the answer to the market sizing question would be that the monthly market size for contact lenses in the US is around 60 million contact lenses per month.
Now, before we get on to the next case, I wanted to let you know that if you're looking for more practice with market sizing questions, then please do check out our free market sizing masterclass on our website. The link is in the description, where you'll learn all the tips and tricks you need with more practice cases. But without further ado, let's get right into the next case. So the second question is all about taxi drivers, and in particular, the exact question is to estimate the annual revenue of a London Uber driver. So take 5 minutes. How would you approach this question?
Now, I actually don't think that there are lots of clarifying questions to ask for this question. It's pretty clear, but I do want to make a few assumptions. Firstly, that there are no wait times between trips, meaning that as soon as one trip is finished, another one starts. And secondly, the individual that I'm analysing in terms of their revenue per year works mornings and afternoons, 6 days a week, from 7 AM to 5 PM. So now that we've got that out of the way, we can get on to the calculation tree. Now, thinking about how much money is made per year by an Uber driver in London is quite difficult. I mean, that's the exact question that we're trying to solve here. But working out the revenue per day will be a lot easier. And then multiplying that by the number of working days per year, which will be 6 times 52, as we said that this Uber driver works 6 days a week. Now this is roughly 300. Now this is assuming that this driver takes 0 holidays, which may lead to an overestimation in the final result, but I'm happy to make this assumption now. Now, in terms of the revenue per day, I think we can work this out using a segmentation table, because some of the key metrics that will lead to the revenue per day will be slightly different depending on if it's morning or afternoon. So firstly, the average trip time in the morning and afternoon will be different because it is busier in the mornings normally. So therefore, I'm going to assume that this is 30 minutes and 20 minutes respectively. Now secondly, the revenue per trip will also be different in the morning and afternoon because Uber uses dynamic pricing. So when the demand is high, i.e. in rush hour in the morning, prices will be higher. So I'm assuming this to be £20 and £15 respectively. And lastly, Uber take a cut of the money, that's how Uber make money, which I'm going to assume is 25%, and this remains constant throughout the day. Now this gives us enough information to work out the revenue per day of this Uber driver, so we can get on to the calculations. Firstly, the morning revenue will be £20 as this was the cost per trip, multiplied by 6 trips as each trip is 30 minutes over a 3-hour period in the morning, and then multiplied by 75% as Uber take a 25% cut, giving us £90 for the morning revenue. And then similarly, for the afternoon, you can work this out in a very similar way to get £230, and by adding these two together, you get the revenue per day to be around £300. And therefore, we can do our final calculation and multiply the revenue per day by the number of working days in a year to give us the revenue per year to be around £90,000. Now, this does seem quite high, and I believe that our assumptions with the wait time between trips and the price per trip is possibly too high. Additionally, I've not factored in any breaks, even for food. Now, if you look at the true value, it's approximated to be closer to £30,000, which is a third of the answer that we got. But remember, it is not about the final answer in market sizing questions. It is about your methodology and explaining where you think you may have overestimated or underestimated some values to your interviewer.
This is a really important point to make. Market sizing questions in cases in consulting case interviews are not about your final answer. They're about the logic that you show to your interviewer. So don't get too worried about trying to get some sort of perfect answer because there really isn't one. So let's get right on to the final case. So our final case is all about tourism in Paris, and in particular, how many hotel rooms are booked in Paris. But in addition, our interviewer has also told us that around 50 million tourists visit Paris every single year, which is some information that could come in handy. But just like with our first case, it's always really good to ask clarifying questions. So take a minute here. Are there any clarifying questions that you would want to ask? So personally, I'd want to clarify 2 things here. So firstly, the time period. So what time period are we looking at? Is this a year or a month, etc.? And secondly, are we including both tourism and business use? Because both tourists and business travellers book hotel rooms. To which for this case, we're going to be looking at the number of hotel rooms booked per night in Paris for both tourism and business use. So take 5 minutes, give this question a go.
So to start solving this question, I'm going to use the fact that we know we need to include both tourism and business use. So the market size is essentially the sum of these 2 submarkets. But to make our lives a lot easier, I'm going to say and assume that business is around 1/5 of the size of tourism in terms of room bookings in Paris, which means if we can work out how many rooms are booked for tourist use, then we can work out the entire market size. So let's start as we normally do with our calculation tree. So tourism rooms per day can be broken down into the number of rooms booked per year divided by the number of days in a year. So the number of days in a year is around 350, and the number of rooms booked in a year can be broken down into the number of tourist groups, so that's what I'm calling a group of tourists that are sleeping in the same room, multiplied by the nights per stay, which I'm going to assume to be 3. Then the number of tourist groups that visit Paris every year can be broken down into the number of tourists that visit Paris every year, divided by the number of tourists per group, the number of tourists we were given by the interviewer to be around 50 million, and I'm going to assume that the number of tourists per group is 2, so it's normally couples. So now that we have our calculation tree and all the numbers, we can go to the calculations. So the number of tourist groups will be the 50 million of tourists that visit Paris every year, divided by 2 to get 25 million. Then the number of rooms booked per year will be the number of tourist groups multiplied by the nights per stay, which gets you to 75 million. The number of rooms booked per day with the number of rooms booked per year divided by the number of days in a year, which gives you roughly 200,000. And finally, when we add in the business part back into this market size, we arrive to around 240,000 rooms booked per day in Paris. But doing some reflection on this, it does seem quite high, even though Paris is such a hot spot for tourism. And if we look at some true data on this, you can see that the number of hotel rooms in Paris is around 86,000. So even if these were fully booked every single night, you still wouldn't get up to the 240,000 rooms that we have estimated. However, it is still roughly in the right ballpark, which fills me with some confidence to the logic and methodology of this approach.
So I really hope you found this video useful and got some good practice and found my solutions interesting. And if you do want some more market sizing practice, like I said, I'd really recommend checking out our free market sizing masterclass on our website. But for now, I wish you all the very best of luck with your consulting applications.